Right, hello everyone. Firstly, thank you for joining our very first ECS webinar. We've got our very first special guest, Neil Farnworth. Thank you very much, Neil. We won't take too much of your time today. I'm sure you all want to get outside and enjoy the lovely weather that we're going to experience over the next few days. But thank you for joining us and taking the time out of your day to listen to what me and Neil have to say this afternoon. Just before we start, some simple housekeeping. All of you who have joined the webinar are now automatically on mute. The video won't appear, your face won't appear, shall I say, so you'll have to put up with myself and Neil for the next hour. We will be running through a Q&A towards the end of the webinar. That should hopefully last for around 10 minutes. You'll notice at the bottom of your Zoom page there is a Q&A function button. If you can, please send any questions through using that facility. You can send questions through any stage throughout the webinar, but we will be answering as many as we can in the last 10 to 15 minutes. For those questions that we can't answer, we will be supplying a full Q&A paper over the next week or so you can have a look at those and maybe share those with your customers. And equally, for those of you who do struggle to understand my very strong Birmingham accent, and Neil being a true Northern Lancashire man, we will be sending a document after the webinar containing all the key topics that we've discussed. So moving on, the reason for the webinar really is just to get some insights into what businesses are doing in this current challenging climate that we all face. As I've said, I'm happy to have Neil as our guest speaker today from K3 Business Technology. Neil is the Managing Director for the MSP division. We're going to be talking around the current climate, but not dwelling too much on the past and really trying to look forward on what the new normal, if there is going to be a new normal, what that will look like. So on that note, Neil, over to you. Would you like to introduce yourself to everybody on the webinar?
Hello. Yes, good afternoon. Like Carl said, I do have quite a broad Lancastrian accent, so subtitles may be better next time. So I've been in the industry counting back 28 years this year. I started as an engineer, worked through into sort of senior technical posts, then into management, and I've now been working with K3 for 7 years in July. The managed services arm of K3, we provide anything from support desk, SME services, AV, backup as a service, anything on as a service type basis, right through to enterprise class hosting. We have customers such as British Art Foundation, Oxfam, Furniture Village, Hobbycraft, English Heritage. So really, due to mergers and acquisitions over the years, we've got abilities to deliver pretty much any technical service from small SMEs right through to large enterprises. We work out of 3 offices in the UK, Wigan being the head office, Edinburgh being our network operations centre for our cloud services, and Hook, which is a southern satellite office for more on-prem and field engineering.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Neil. So moving on to the immediate impact, your business has clients in a multitude of sectors. What's been the immediate impact to not only K3 but to your customers?
Varied. We have some customers that are totally closed. We have a couple of organisations that work in the leisure industry and have been hit very hard. Some in hospitality as well. However, we still do have quite a lot that are trading as normal and are actually bringing projects forward where perhaps they are have quiet periods due to the lockdown. Saying that, we are seeing an impact to our sales intake. April was around about 1/5 of what we budgeted for on our day-to-day sales. Saying that, we are in quite a lucky position because around about 85% of our income is recurring revenues from support and hosting services.
Okay, well, good. Now, one of the challenges we're facing, I'm sure every business is, it's how we're keeping people motivated. The new norm is everybody working from home. We're not seeing each other as often. So what have you and your customers done to keep your team motivated and maximise productivity?
Yeah, it's interesting. You say the new norm, and we've got
Mm.
a shirt on, a business shirt on for the first time in 8 weeks. Like we said earlier, please don't ask me to stand up though. We're using Microsoft Teams and Skype for connectivity and mobility. We've got a strict camera on policy for all our meetings and calls we do. We've also increased our regular leadership and management calls. So where we would usually have a, say, finance team call on a Monday, we're now doing that 3 times a week. Where we'd usually have a sales call on a Tuesday, that's twice a week. We're just trying to make everybody feel more together and working as one rather than individuals sat at different parts around the country.
That's an interesting point you made there about the camera on policy. It's not something we've adapted. What's the reasons behind that?
Just so people can see each other and we're not hiding behind a blank screen or a photograph of ourselves. I find it works really well when we're in group discussions. People feel more like they're actually in a physical meeting where we can see people. Obviously, for the first few days, it was quite humorous looking to see what people had in the backgrounds, whether they sat on a sofa or on a kitchen table or in their own office. So once we got past that and realised Teams, you can put custom backgrounds on now, and we can pretend we're on holiday or somewhere else. But it really does help the camaraderie and the working together piece.
No, excellent. So maybe something we should look at adopting, definitely moving forward. So every business needs a good leadership team, regardless of the state of the climate or the economy, etc. Even more now than ever, a strong leadership team needed. What decisions have you and K3 had to make from a leadership point of view with the impact of COVID-19?
Because the businesses hit different in different places, we've had to take a real hard calculated look at the business and try and predict the staffing levels required and adjust accordingly. We have furloughed some staff because some areas of the business, like I mentioned, we do support quite a few leisure and hospitality sector businesses. But other areas, our cloud services team are running at 100%. It's business as usual. We still need to service the customers that we deliver those services to. So we have furloughed a few staff, only a handful, and we have another handful who've volunteered to work 4 days per week. That said, sorry, I'll just say, that said, we won a piece of business yesterday, which means we've already unfurloughed a technician. One of our customers, who is a manufacturer and has staff on site and working from home, their own IT department are struggling to actually deliver services to their staff. So we've unfurloughed one of our engineers to put them on their site for 4 weeks to assist them.
Perfect. So hopefully there's some light at the end of the tunnel then with people coming off furlough, and I hope other businesses have the same opportunity. What have you implemented with communicating with people on furlough? Have you been keeping in regular contact with them to ensure they're still part of the team?
We're only in the first week of furlough. We were a bit late to the party, to be honest, and we're trying to decide whether we could ride this out or whether we needed to furlough more people. And it was decided, looking at the resource patterns and requirements through to middle of April, that we would actually look to furlough in May. I'm hoping that it is only for May and we can fetch everybody back to work from June. I guess we'll know more maybe this evening or Sunday when we hear from Boris.
And I assume, will you be, communicating with your people on furlough over the next few weeks? Are you going to be having regular team meetings?
We are. The government advice is we shouldn't be talking to the staff because they are on furlough and shouldn't be working. But of course, we care for our staff and our workforce, so we will be contacting them on a regular basis just to make sure they are safe and well.
Yeah, I think it's important, isn't it? Just simply from a welfare point of view,
yes.
Definitely. So there's been a lot of talk around companies taking some positives from the situation. Not many, but there are hopefully some positives. And one of those being around what we can learn, how we can adapt, and how we can be more agile. What are the key learnings K3 have, and not only just K3, but your customers? Has there been anything in particular that you're going to take moving forward?
I think we've learned that people can continue to operate as teams when remotely and not just individuals, although there are challenges. I've also learned personally that we don't need to commute to an office every day. I think the new normal is going to be very different. Do we need big office spaces? Do we need to commute? Do we need all the traffic on the roads? I only live 13 miles away from my office, but due to traffic, this can take up to an hour each way. So personally, I've saved 10 hours per week that I'm not travelling. However, after about week 4, I realised I actually miss that thinking time, sat in the car, listening to the radio, because now it's roll out of bed, shower, breakfast, into my office at home. I think we've also learned that we can still be productive working remotely and supporting our customer base. I think some organisations were against home working and against remote support desks, but I think because we've been forced into this, I think going forward, a lot of people will realise that we can be productive working in this manner. But it does differ. The lucky ones I mentioned earlier, I have an office in my house, so I'm lucky. But we still do have a lot of our staff, sat in the bedroom, in the kitchen, on a coffee table, and that is a bit more of a challenge, especially when there are more than one home worker in the house at any one time. Also with children, trying to homeschool and work at the same time can be a challenge, but we'll get through it.
Yeah, it's certainly been a challenge for me having 2 young daughters at home. I mean, I'm fortunate enough, as Neil, I've got the touring caravan on the drive, so I can escape for a little bit. But yeah, I do feel for all the parents out there that are trying to work and homeschool their children at the same time. But hopefully, we'll get back to some normality pretty soon. And Teams, I think for me, Teams has really opened my eyes up. I'll be honest with you, before we went into isolation, I didn't use Teams. Moving forward, you can't beat meeting a customer face-to-face for obvious reasons, but certainly I think I'll be using Teams video more for having conversations, and maybe the desk phone is a thing of the past because people will just do this over Teams and it makes sense. It's a great technology stack. So yeah, it's really opened my eyes in how we can use it. And also, we've got to think of the environment, haven't we? It's the less cars on the road. You can look at, Venice, the canals, how clear they are, and protecting the environment as well, which is key. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops over the next 6 months. So moving on now to sort of the business process, strategy, etc. Key area to ECS, for obvious reasons, is projects and recruitment. That's what our business does. Has there been any particular projects that you've had to put on hold, or your customers have put on hold, or equally, are there any projects that have actually been brought forward from the industry?
Yeah, a bit of all sorts, really. If you look across the wider K3 group, there's 2 office moves that have been temporarily suspended, one in the UK, one in Singapore. Expansion plans for certain areas of business have been put on hold. We hope, obviously, on a temporary basis. Our own Edinburgh office, where we've outgrown the staffing levels in the office, and 4 months ago rented a small Regis office to relocate the service desk. We were looking for a bigger office in the area to relocate all the staff to. We're now questioning whether we need to do this. We've been working from home for so long. Can we put a rota in place to enable maybe a third of the business to be out of the office at any one time? The Regis offices are expensive. We can save probably 30,000-40,000 a year by having people working at home and continuing to use the same office space that we've had for the last 4 years. So that's from a facilities point of view as a challenge. We do quite a few events during the year. We usually do Cloud Expo, IP Expo, and we visit our suppliers, vendors, and some of our customer events. Obviously, these have all been put on hold, and I can't see them restarting for any time long, because these are classed as mass gatherings. So even if we do come out of lockdown slowly, 40,000 people at the Excel is not something we're going to see, I think, for a long, long time. So that's, from an advertising and a relationship side of things, that's a struggle for us. But on the customer side, we've seen a strange effect, really. We've had a couple of customers put some big hardware refreshes on hold. One customer was due to place an order for nearly £1 million at the beginning of April. That's been put on hold indefinitely. We had another customer in the hospitality industry looking to do a storage refresh for about £250,000 over the summer period. And again, that's been cancelled totally. But if you look from other sector we deal a lot of large charities from our cloud services. So these guys seem to be ploughing ahead, and quite a few of them are actually pulling projects forward whilst they've got empty stores, whilst the teams are quiet, we are pulling ERP projects through to conclusion before they were expected to do. So some people, where they can do, are actually using this to their advantage.
Okay, good. So there are some positives out there, and I think we all know the market, certainly from a project point of view, deployments, etc. It was quite busy just before we went on isolation. So we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what the next 6 to 12 months are going to look like. We don't know what the confidence is going to look like. But let's hope we can certainly start some of these projects again. Now, for one thing that I picked up there about your Edinburgh office and people working from home, not looking to expand, etc. Is that something you're going to do by choice? Because not everybody wants to work from home. Some people, I know myself included, actually miss coming into the office, maybe working from home 1 or 2 days a week at a push. But I'd much rather be around my colleagues and have those conversations face to face. That's what motivates you as well during the day.
Yes, majority of our staff were office based. Probably the only team that weren't was the sales team. They, where possible, came into the office on Mondays. I don't think it is practical for everybody to work from home permanently. I was on a pandemic response team call this morning for the K3 group, and we were talking about reopening offices and how it would work with social distancing and how we can keep and make sure that the areas are clean. So I think we will need to keep some home working going on, maybe a rota for a period of time before we can allow everybody into the office. Some of our Wigan office is quite a large office space with quite a lot of desk area. The Edinburgh one is totally opposite. It's very small with a lot of people in there, so we'll need to manage this very carefully. I personally don't think we'll ever get back to where we were with everybody having a dedicated desk in an office.
And when is there any sort of time frames? When do you think the offices potentially will start reopening?
I think we're waiting to see what advice we get from the government over this weekend. But I would think maybe within the next month or so we will start having people going back into the office.
What is that, a particular department or a certain team of people?
No, I think probably across everywhere where we can facilitate staff in an office space. We will start doing that, like I say, following government advice.
No, thank you. So recruitment going to be a challenge for everybody. How has it affected your recruitment plans for the next 18 months, 2 years?
Initially, when this uncertainty started, we put a block on all recruitment, a freeze on any new hires, just to make sure we weren't spending money where we didn't need to. Especially as we have some staff on furlough and some staff on 4-day week due to utilisation. I think though, as long as our customers and their customers in turn survive, we are confident on a return to expansion later in the year. We had 3 vacancies open before lockdown, all in the technical department, and I expect we will need this resource once we're back up and running fully. We have low staff attrition during normal times, and I think recruitment might be a struggle at the moment. I don't think anybody will want to risk a move in uncertain times. So I know, Carl, we were talking about an opportunity yesterday, and there just doesn't seem to be that workforce around at the moment if we did need anybody, because if somebody has a job, they're pretty much staying put at the moment.
Yeah, that's it. Now, I know we've got the pending IR35 change, which thankfully the government has postponed for another 12 months, which will again have another impact in not only my industry, but in all industries across the UK. Do you think the norm potentially will be more of a focus on flex resource, not just in IT, but across every department within businesses?
Yes, I think so. It's very much project based. We struggle to flex because of the competencies I need in the team. So we do have quite a static workforce, but I can really see in the future where we are taking on larger projects, we will create a team for that project and expand and shrink as and when required over the duration of that project.
Have you had any of your customers come to you in the last sort of month or so to offer that support from a flexible point of view, rather if they've potentially lost people through redundancy? Or...
We've had quite a few customers asking about payment plans,
Yeah.
which is quite. We're obviously very happy to support where we can and support our customers financially, but not from a resourcing point perspective.
Okay, yeah, payment plans, again, that and furlough, it's been a bit of a blessing, hasn't it? I know not every company can afford to offer payment holidays, but it's certainly the ones that can are helping the industry, aren't they?
We are, and we will do what we can where we can. You know, there's two things we need when we come out of this: it's staff and customers, and we need to keep our staff happy and keen to work for K3. But we also need to make sure our customers survive. And you know, we have lent quite heavily on group finance to assist us to do this for our customers, and thankfully it's working well.
Good. So looking forward now to the challenges that businesses will face when, I keep saying the normal, we don't know what the normal is going to look like, but what do you think the main challenges will be, not only for K3, but for your customers when we do start operating back to some normal level of activity?
I think in my business, we're going to have a huge spike in support desk tickets. People have been working from home. We had a big spike when people started working from home to make sure the technology would work for them. I think people will turn back up an office. It's not being used for 2 months, 3 months, and things won't work. So I expect a busy couple of months from a support and field service side of the business. I think a lot of the customers that have postponed projects will want to restart them. So, like we just mentioned, I have a finite amount of resource to deliver projects. It may well be I am reaching out to ECS to ask for more resource for a period of time, because if all the customers come at the same time and want to kick off the projects that they had planned to either later in the year or the ones that have been postponed from earlier in the year, that could be a challenge. We're also seeing a challenge in hardware supply. I don't know what it's like at the moment. I've not checked for a few weeks, but certainly as soon as lockdown started, it was really difficult to get hold of laptops. Everybody that didn't have anything to a mobile device were buying laptops. We had a lot of customers asking for deliveries, and the majority of them we couldn't actually fulfil. We couldn't get hold of the hardware. So I think, depending on whether supplies resume, I think there will be a premium as well, cost-wise. We could have an issue there throughout the year. From a staffing perspective, we will struggle with holiday accruals. All the staff, you would hope, would want to take some holidays and won't get out and about when this lockdown comes out. So, everybody's planned to be on holiday for the last 2 months have cancelled the holidays. So it could be a challenge trying to manage that through the last 2 quarters of the year. And I think it's the same for all the customers as well. We've seen very similar feedback from people we speak to.
Okay. So your support desk then, you say you're going to see a spike. I can understand the reasons why that may be. How are you going to manage that spike in support calls? Are you going to bring people in from other areas of the business who normally would be working on a particular project? What's the plan behind that?
We'll be agile. We'll take it on a day-to-day basis. We have our support desks span across all 3 offices, some with specialism, some more generic. We have the ability through the technology we use to route calls in different directions, and it also really depends on when our customers go back to their office spaces. It may well be a phased approach as well. So it's something we're keeping a close eye on, and we'll just work on a day-to-day basis. If we need to reroute resource to where it's required, we can do. We are quite flexible.
Oh, good. Well, moving forward then onto the sort of outlook for businesses. When, again, we go back to some level of normality, do you think the new norm will be the same as the previous norm, or how do you think that will look for businesses across the UK?
I'm hoping to see the majority of the projects we were planning on doing coming back in, and hoping will they be reinstated. But as I mentioned earlier, some of the sectors that we support have been hit very hard. But as for the outlook for business and the new norm, I don't think we know what the norm is. I think we'll find there'll be quite a few new normals as we progress this lockdown. whether it is offices reopening with social distancing, not using shared spaces or hot desking. We won't be having small meeting rooms, meetings in small rooms. I think it's probably going to be 12 months before we see what a permanent new normal looks like. And I don't think that still will look like what we had 3 months ago. But like I say, I think it will be, the new normal will be on a month by month basis for some period of time.
Yeah, the hot desking situation is an interesting one, isn't it? Certainly when I spend time on my client sites, predominantly in the big cities, notably London, that's just their office environment, isn't it? Nobody has a fixed permanent desk.
Yeah, and that's something that I know the government have been talking about, is banning shared areas. I was talking with my technical director from our Wigan office this morning, and we were saying, when we reopen the Wigan office, what areas are shared? A coffee machine, a photocopier, anything that we can go and physically touch. We need to understand how we can actually make sure when it has been touched by an individual, it is then cleaned and ready for the next person to go back to it. It's going to take a lot of thought.
Yeah, and equally, as we've seen, people have stayed at home, they have followed the rules, but people, when we do go back to work and go back into the office and those shared spaces, people just have to be sensible, don't they, and take responsibility for ensuring that they are cleaning the areas that they're using, etc.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So over the last few weeks, there's been a lot in the press, a lot in media with regards to some companies that have really coped well. Certainly in the financial sector, I think a lot of the banks have coped so well with closing the office on a Friday and then everybody working from home and it just be BAU on a Monday morning. But unfortunately, there has been some companies that have been ill-equipped. Nobody expected this situation, so you can't always plan for everything. But with that in mind, what do you think companies and your customers can learn from what's happened, and how can they protect themselves moving forward? God forbid if there was ever a similar situation in 5, 10, 15 years. What can they learn about what happened?
I think from my own personal experience, we didn't realise how mobile the K3 MSP team were, mainly by luck more than anything. Only one of our 80 strong staff didn't have a laptop. So K3 made the decision a week before the government did that we were going to work from home. So we were already on Skype for telephony. We're already on Teams. Again, for telephony and for video. Teams doesn't quite have the telephony features Skype has yet, but it will be coming. So we will go back to one platform. But we were already a mobile-enabled workforce, even if we weren't practicing it. So, like I say, we shut the shop on the Friday, and everybody tried to get used to this new normal of working from your sofa or your office or wherever on the Monday morning. And it worked. I was really surprised how much it did work. We tried to aid our customers in early days of lockdown. We quickly created some new connectivity products. So where our customers had perhaps home PCs at home, but not a laptop, we had a solution which meant they could remote control their PC in the office and effectively work from home. And we did that on a very low cost price per month basis, just to assist our customers to work remotely. But I think we will see a lot of take up in remote solutions, just in case this happens again. I think there'll be a shift. I still saw customers that didn't really get the benefit of using these mobility solutions, and they thought it wasn't something they required. They're happy with their old-fashioned telephone system and basic email functionality. But these data have been proven that people do need this technology to be able to work from home. I think Microsoft have done an absolute fantastic offer with offering Teams free for 6 months. People are picking up the solution and software and seeing how good it is, and then just adopting it. And I think we will see a real take up from the customers that didn't even think about it before, because they're now seeing what actually is possible.
That's a challenge with IT, isn't it? Because a lot of companies, rightly or wrongly so, see IT as a huge cost and not always a valued cost. But yeah, I'm sure it's changed a lot of people's mindsets. although we're in a difficult situation. So we're going to be coming up to the Q&A in the next sort of 5 minutes, but just to sort of close off a few more questions, Neil. A lot of companies are using this opportunity to look at their businesses, potentially press the reset button in some areas, to look at departments, to look at processes, streamlining efficiencies, etc. Are there any particular processes you've streamlined, or you've seen your customers streamline over the last month?
I think from a efficiency of working is interesting. I said before, we have 3 physical offices throughout the UK. I actually feel it feels like we're working closer together now than we ever have done, even though nobody's physically seen anybody for the last 2 months. We were already quite a lean business, but we have learned how we can actually work better and closer together through this challenging times. And we've learned that our new virtual teams can still work together, but in different locations. So I think going forward, we keep talking about the new norm. It definitely is going to be more home working, less commuting, less travelling.
That can't be a bad thing, can it? The commuting and travelling, as I say, for the state of the environment, the global environment, and hopefully to stop all the pollution that happens. But yeah. So with regards to these saving costs, because hopefully from streamlining processes there will be an element of cost saving. Are there any particular areas that you can invest in other services, or your customers potentially are going to invest? Is there anything that's been discussed at the moment?
Yeah, we're trying to predict what this is going to look like in a few months' time. And I think where our customers have put in temporary solutions to enable home working, I think the adoption of the mobility services such as Teams that we've talked about and Zoom we're on now is really going to take off in the second half of this year. So we are using this time to upskill our technical teams just to make sure we have the ability to deliver the services our customers want when we come out of this. Because I think there will be a really big uptake in mobility services.
Good, excellent. Well, that's coming to the end now of the questions with Neil. So I'm going to head over to to everybody who's part of the audience. Got a couple of questions coming through, so if you bear with me a second. Okay, so question for you, Neil. Would you agree that the future of home working for employees is as much in their own hands as it is in the hands of the employers themselves?
It's an interesting question, that. I think it will be a shared decision. Obviously, there are some positions that cannot be done remotely, manufacturing, for example. But I think I don't think it'll be 100% home or 100% office. I think it'll be more flexible working. Where for myself, I love meeting people and I love being in front of people. But is it really necessary for me to drive to the south coast and do a sort of a 500-mile round trip for a 2-hour meeting, where we can be more productive on Teams? But I do think the workforce that have realised they can work from home and can be productive working from home, and I think it's important, as long as they have the right environment to working from home, I think these people will be challenging their employers to say, why do I need to come to the office? If I can deliver this service and my tasks at home in my home office, then why do I commute? Why do I need to spend X amount of hundreds of pounds a year on train and public transport when I can do it from the house? So I think people who hadn't worked from home before realise they can work from home. I do think that will be a big take up or a big requirement going forward in the relationship with their employers.
Yeah, somebody mentioned to me the other day, it's the working from home ethic now. It's going to be a case of working more outcome based than it is from a management point of view. So how do we adapt and how do we manage those outcomes? Is it sort of reliant on software, reliant on your CRM? Anything?
I think a bit of everything. I think a bit of everything, Carl. Management has to play a big role in this. I work with some organisations where they wouldn't dream of people work from home, because how do we know what they're doing? I think it's a lot of trust element, but you say, what is productivity? What is the outcome? from a support desk perspective, we know who's logging how many tickets per day, so we can manage the output there. From the consultant's perspective, if they're deploying new virtual servers in a data center, we know what the work's done, we know how long it's expected to take. My personal view, I think I'm actually more productive. It's good to be in the office, it's good to have a chat with people, it's great for that social interaction, but I actually find I'm getting a lot more work done sat at home. I'm not getting that social interaction, I'm missing that, I really am. But I think, because you don't have any distractions, you can play through an immense volume of work.
That's, I think certainly for me, as I say, I'd much rather be in the office, because it's what I've known for the last 23 years. But I guess it's about giving people choice, isn't it? And having that flexibility to have that hybrid model where you can still interact with your colleagues on a face-to-face level, albeit not as often as what we used to.
Yeah, I think for the next maybe 6 to 12 months, we'll be forced to do that anyway. I think government guidelines with social distancing in office space, we won't have the office capacity to be able to work 2 meters apart. It's not going to be feasible. So, like I mentioned earlier, we are looking on probably somewhere between 30% and 50% of the workforce at any one stage, time being home-based, and put that on a rota. So everybody does come in at some stage. Everybody does see their peers.
Yeah. Okay, another question just come through. There's a few, so we'll try and answer as many as we can. Are your colleagues confident returning to work? And if so or not, what measures are you planning to put in place to keep them safe and confident?
Varies. Of my colleagues I've spoken to in the past few days, when the idea of reactivating the office space has been discussed, some are very, very keen to get back in to work. Because they've been sat on the kitchen desk for the last 8 weeks. Of course, they want to get back to an environment where they feel more productive in. But there is that. When you look in the media and the press as well today, he's saying a lot of people are very wary about moving back into what they may see as a dangerous environment. We are looking to do deep cleans of all the office spaces before we move in. We are looking to educate staff in how to keep their working area safe. We will be getting rid of any hot desks or any shared areas we have, and we just need to make sure that we keep the environments as clean as possible, and just adapt where we can. But yeah, there are some worried people.
Yeah, I can imagine, and that's it. It's all about adapting, isn't it? And it becoming a habit rather than people working to that new way of life for a month, and then we just go back to our old ways, which is going to be a challenge.
It's like I say, this new norm. I don't see it as being one new norm. I see it being many new normals for a period of time, which will adapt and will change as and when we come out the back end of this pandemic.
Okay, a couple of more questions. One from more of a sort of technical point. What solutions are there for information security with home workers, e.g. data protection, data leaks, duty of care?
Many. I'm not a security expert. I have a few that work for me. I'm quite happy to have a conversation there. What we try to do is keep data central. So we have as little data as possible on the endpoint devices. So my laptop here is just effectively a screen and a keyboard. All the data that we store is on our cloud platform, which is obviously it's ISO 27001. It's secure. It's backed up. It's resilient. So we try not to put as little data on laptop devices as possible. And Teams is great. Again, going back to Teams, the actual way of sharing documents and data through Teams is brilliant.
Yeah, Microsoft has certainly done a good job there, as you would expect. This is a really interesting question, actually. Have K3 seen an increase in productivity on their service desk function, e.g. more tickets being closed, their backlog reduced, less breached SLAs, etc.? Are people performing better as a result of working from home?
I think generally the question is yes. So our cloud service desk, which is based out of Edinburgh, is busier. We are picking up more tickets because rather than customers connecting in from an office space, they're connecting in from their home and maybe having some communication difficulties. So they have been flat out, and we have had to redirect some of that traffic to elsewhere in the business. but it's managed well. This team leaders in the group. There's Brian, the service desk manager. We have the daily meetings, so we're keeping the staff motivated and in constant communication with them. On the flip side, other parts of the business that do the support for the leisure and hospitality side of the business, these have been quite quiet. So initially we used that time to catch up on some project work that we could do remotely for customers, but that's run out now. So these are the people that are a handful of people that are on furlough and on reduced working hours.
Okay, excellent. Well, there are plenty of questions, but we're going to have to finish soon. So I'm going to just go through the last two now. Do you think this is an opportunity to completely re-engineer your business?
Yes, another interesting question. I don't think I need to totally re-engineer my business. It works. My division is extremely profitable, well run. I have a good team around me. I said earlier we're a lean business, and I'm trying to think where we could re-engineer what the benefit would be. I think the only re-engineering would be sort of work ethics and how we actually physically interact with each other or not. So I mentioned earlier about the Edinburgh office. We're at capacity and need to relocate, obviously at a cost. That is probably something we're not going to do now, and we'll just rota people in and out of the office as and when. So no, I don't think it will be a full re-engineer. Maybe more of an evolution.
Okay, and the final question, because time is going very quickly and the sun's shining, so this is one that means a lot to me. I can relate to this question because I've got two daughters at home who any given minute of the day when they're allowed, they're straight onto their mobile phones, on FaceTime, on Wi-Fi, which does have an impact when I'm working and certainly slows my connection down. So Neil, how are you coping with poor internet connectivity for your staff?
I have personal experience of this. I live in a small village in the northwest, and up until February, and I've lived in this house for 13 years, my internet connection was atrocious. I was so far from the exchange, on a bit of copper, and if I got 2 meg, I was happy. Thankfully, my new best friends at OpenReach over the winter plumbed us in for direct fibre. So I've now got fantastic 150 meg fibre straight into the house, and it's revolutionary. I could not have worked at home in this way with the old internet connection I had. I tried everything, 4G routers, mobile tethering, everything to get a better signal. As you can imagine, my son and his PlayStation 4 with 2 meg internet connection, it just wasn't happening. So we had an upset son. Wife can't stream Netflix. I can't do my work. Honestly, it has changed the way I work from home. I couldn't have done this in the past. So I'm hoping where our staff live, majority of them have got good internet access. We've got better mobile communications. Where the government are rolling out in rural areas, fantastic. The urban areas are pretty much there. I think it was the villages like I live in that's not particularly rural, but not particularly urban, that was missing out on this connectivity. But time has come and BT have done a great job. So yes, it is a challenge. I've not heard any of my staff complain about connectivity issues and it being an issue for them working from home. And if we did, we'd look at whatever solution we could find to assist.
And what solutions are, just out of interest, what solutions are there for those people who aren't lucky enough to have?
I was on a 4G router, so it's basically a mobile phone without voice. And depending where you physically are in the country, some of the providers have better solutions. Stuart, my sales director, he lives 3 miles down the road, and he's getting 20, 30 meg out of a EE 4G router. Because he's even more rural than I am, and he's no connection. You've also got these wireless masses, various companies in the area that are bouncing wireless signals from tall buildings to houses. There's a farm behind me that has a mast. That's at capacity because the connectivity in the area was poor. Another provider put a mast in on top of one of the shops in the village. Unfortunately, there's a big tree between me and them. So that was an issue that I couldn't get that either. Yet next door but one is fine. He's getting the microwave link down there. So there's various solutions. Unfortunately, not all of them work for everybody.
No, that's it. I blame my children. Keep them off their FaceTime. Right, we're coming to the end now, everybody. So, Neil, just final words from you to conclude on your behalf.
Yeah, I think we've learned a lot in this period. I've got a new hairdresser. My wife's doing a fantastic job of it. I don't know about calls. Doing it herself. We know that call works from a caravan in his driveway. If you get call on Teams, you'll see the inside of his caravan. It's very nice. But back to being serious. My theme today really is, I'm sure we'll see an attitude to workforce mobility. Do we need to travel? Do we need to commute? Is the desire still there for face-to-face meetings that there always has been? I think this period has shown any doubters, and there were still some, that we can truly, honestly have a flexible approach to working locations. We've all been doing this for the last 7-8 weeks. It's probably going to continue for a few more yet, but I think that really is how the future, or how this period in time will shape the future of mobile working.
Excellent. Well, Neil, thank you very much for being our very first guest speaker.
No, pleasure.
Not a problem. And audience, thank you very much for watching. Just to conclude the next steps, there will be some further content, as I say, following the webinar over the next few weeks with the Q&A paper. There'll also be a document containing the key topics that we've discussed. There will be a feedback form as well. Now, it is my first webinar, so please be a little bit gentle, but on a serious note, your feedback is appreciated. And finally, I'm hoping to run a number of these webinars. The next one, all being well, I've got 2 HR directors lined up to have their thoughts, not necessarily just about COVID-19, but what the future will look like from an end client point of view. So hopefully you can all register again for that. And equally, if anybody wants to be a guest speaker, we're always open to hear your opinions and get you involved. So please drop me an email to carl@ecsgrp.co.uk. And on that note, thank you very much for watching. Go and enjoy the sun. Have a great extended bank holiday weekend as much as we can, being at home, but enjoy the garden and stay safe. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.